Part two, standard form. So before we get into standard form, let's talk about the parabola again. Now we know that the parabola has a direction. This is a positive parabola, so that number for A is positive. And the vertex is h and k, but if you notice in standard form, there is no h and k. So you don't have the vertex. So what you have to find is this other thing called the axis of symmetry. So let's explain what this is. The axis of symmetry. Okay? The axis of symmetry is basically a number for x that is the middle of the graph, where you find the vertex. So if you have this, you know where to find the vertex. So guys, it's very important that when you have standard form, the first thing we do is find the axis of symmetry. So we can then find the other things. All right? Now, the way you do that is with this formula, okay? To find that value for x, we use this formula. Negative b over 2a. Okay, now there's a reason, it comes from an actual formula, but we don't have time for that, so we're just going to use it and just take my word for it. So whatever number you put here, you plug it in and change it to a negative sign. Okay, and if it's a negative, then you'll end up changing it to a positive. And then the number here, you put down here, and you're going to multiply it by 2. That'll give you where the middle of the parabola will be. So then once you have x, once you have this number, plug it in and you'll find the vertex. Okay? So we're going to do a couple examples of that. How to find the axis of symmetry. So right here. Negative b over 2a. So in this case, 6 is my b, so I'm going to put in negative 6. And 2 times a is negative 3. So I get negative 6, and then 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. Negative 6 over negative 6 is positive 1. So 1 is my middle number. Now what I have to do is plug in 1 into this. So now I'm going to take my function and plug in the number 1. I'll plug in the number 1 for x. So I'm replacing x with the number 1. So all right, so this would be 1 times 1 is 1, so I get negative 3. 6 times 1 is 6, so I get 2. Yeah, 2. So now my vertex is 1, comma 2. There's my vertex. There's my vertex. So if I wanted to graph it, what number am I putting in the middle of my table? I'm putting this number in the middle of my table. And that's what would be the next steps to graph it. So you would make a table with this, right? You would make a table with 1 and 2 in the middle, and then you put the numbers around it. 0, 2, negative 1, 3. You would make your table, plug them in for x, and that would give you your answers for y. And that table you can then graph and turn into this. And that's how you do it. That's how you're going to graph these. Now, there is one more thing you should know. This one. This is crossing the y-axis, so this is called the y-intercept. Now, it can be in different places. Sometimes this point will be up here, or sometimes it'll even be in the middle sometimes. But the y-intercept is found in one location. Guys, the y-intercept is that number, is C. So, just so you know, if they ask you for the y-intercept, find the C of the equation and you have it. That's all you need for that one. All right, so let's do both of those things now. So let's say I want to find the axis of symmetry. So let's start with that. The axis of symmetry. Then the vertex. And then the y-intercept. So let's say I want that information from this equation now, okay? So we're gonna start with the x-symmetry. X equals negative b over 2a. So in this case, negative b is a negative 9. Now because I'm plugging in a negative 9, you have negative and negative becomes a positive. A is 1.5, so I get 2 1.5. If I multiply that, that gives me 3. So I get 9 divided by 3 is 3. This is my axis of symmetry. That's the axis of symmetry. It's 3. Okay, for the vertex, I take the 3 and I'm going to plug it into my function. So I'm going to plug in 3 for x. So you would use a calculator for this. Like, please use a calculator. It'll save you so much time. Okay. Let's see. If I put this, that's going to be 9 times 1.5. I think I get 13.5. I get negative 27, and I get plus 7. If I add that all up, I get 20. I'm going to get negative 6.5. So my vertex, now this is important. My vertex is going to be this, 3 comma negative 6.5. So you see the axis of symmetry is part of your vertex. It tells you where that point is in the middle. The last thing, the y-intercept. This is the easy one. If this is the function, a, b, and c, your y-intercept is at 7. It's the c. The y-intercept is c. Okay? All right. Now, that's how you find the information. Let's actually do a little bit more information about it. Okay? So then, here, we would start with the easy parts. What is the y-intercept here? Remember, A, B, C, A, B, C. So the y-intercepts, 1, negative 4. Okay? Before you identify the vertex, we should find the axis of symmetry. So in this case, this would be negative 8. And I put negative 2, that would be negative 4. That's 2. In this case, it'd be negative 6 over 6, because 2 times 3. That would be negative 1. Now, you would plug these in. Take these numbers and plug it in. So I would get in this, let's see, that would be 16. I'm sorry, I'm trying to do this in my head. You should do this in a calculator. So this would be 4 times negative 2. That is negative 8. That is 16. So I get positive 8. I get 9. So the vertex is at 2, 9. Okay. Here, if I plug in negative 1, that's 3 minus 6. So that's negative 10 and 3. That's 7. So I get, is it negative 7? Yeah, it would be a negative 7. Okay, so I'm doing it very quickly. You should just use a calculator to plug it in. And in case you forgot how to do that, what you want to do is write the numbers out. But instead of x, use parentheses. Use parentheses, okay? That way, when you plug it in, I forgot the plus sign. When you plug it in, all you do is say, okay, what number am I plugging in again? Oh, I'm plugging in 2. So I'm gonna put a 2 in here, I'm plug a 2 in there, there we go. And I found it. And if you wanna make your table, then you just plug in the numbers around it. Okay, what happens if I plug in 1? Okay, what happens if I plug in 0? And one thing you should notice, when you plug in 0, guess what you get? Yep, the y-intercept. That's another way to do it. If you plug in 0, you get the y-intercept. Anyway, next, minimum or maximum. Okay, this is about the vertex. Now, you have to know if it's a minimum, that means that your vertex is the lowest point. If it's a maximum, that means that your vertex is the biggest point. So in this equation, you're looking at A. That means it's a negative. What kind of shape is it? It's going down. So that means you actually have a maximum. Here, this is positive. So it goes up. That means that this point is actually the minimum. And it has nothing to do with the negatives. It has nothing to do with the negatives. It has to do with the shape of the parabola. If it's a parabola that's going down, you have a maximum point as the highest point. If you have a parabola that's going up, then the middle point is a minimum because it's the lowest point. Okay? So keep that in mind. All right, next. Opens upward or opens downward. That has to do with the arrows. So when you have a maximum, the arrows are going down because it's only going to get smaller from that point. But if you have a minimum, the arrows are going up. Okay? So that's really it. The only thing I would say for graphing, guys, if I was going to graph any of these, the next step would be to make my tables. For this table, like I said, I would put 2 and 9 in the middle. 2 and 9. And then I put the numbers around it. 1 and 0. And then 3 and 4. I would use the calculator, like I just showed you. Plug in that equation. When you plug in 0, you get 1. What happens when you plugged in 1 again? What did we get when we plugged in 1? We got 7. Now, do you need to plug in 3 and 4? No, because the points are going to be the same on the other side. Now, once you have that, you just graph those points. We're just going to graph them. 1, 2, 9, 1, 7, 3, 7. 0, 1, 4, 1. You see the points match on both sides. It probably looks like this. And I don't need to keep finding points because I know what's going to keep happening. It's just going to keep going down. And guys, that's how you graph. To graph, all you need is the vertex, because once you have the vertex, you can find the other points very easily.